birçok sivil toplum örgütünden bugün davetimizi kabul ederek gelmiş olan arkadaşlar hoş geldiniz. İsmim Hakan Zihnoğlu. BÜMED'in 14. dönem yönetim kurulu başkanıyım. 30. yılını kutlayan Bağışçı Üniversitesi Mezunlar Derneği'nin bugüne kadar yönetim kurulları adına sizlere tekrar hoş geldiniz diyorum. Bugün bir davetlimiz var. Mark Dollhopf. 30. yılı birkaç etkinlikle kutlayalım istedik. Bu etkinliklerden bir tanesi de aslında global networkler bir parçası olan YALE Üniversitesi toplantısıydı. Sevgili Emre Kazancıoğlu'yla 2014'te ve 2013'te 2 defa YALE Üniversitesi'ni ziyaret ettik. Ve amacımız acaba dünyada ve Amerika'da mezun ilişkileri, para yaratma, fon yaratma işleri nasıl oluyor konularıydı. Ve muhteşem bir isimle tanıştık. Şimdi küçük bir izin istedi, içeride gelecek. Mark Dollhopf. Kendisinden 2 ayrı sunum seyrettik. 2 ayrı sunum aldık. Ve mezun ilişkilerinin nasıl yapıldığı ile ilgili kendimize böyle sayfalar dolusu notlarla, ödevlerle Türkiye'ye farklı kültürlerden, farklı dinamiklerden bir kişinin söyledikleri bizim için anlam ifade etti. Ve son 1,5 senede bu konusunda bir şeyler yaptık. Mesela bir tanesini aktarayım. Hem de gelene kadar konuşmayı başlatmış olduk. YALE öğretilerimizden bir tanesi mezunları örgütlemeye çalışma öğretisiydi. Yani herhangi bir şekilde senin yapay olarak yapacağın bir aktivite asla kalıcı kalmıyor. Bırak onlar bir konu tarafında eğer ilgileniyorlarsa bırak onlar örgütlensinler. Bunun adına da Shared Interest Group demişlerdi. SIG. Biz de döner dönmez bütün aslında çalışmalarımızı bu yöne çevirdik. Ve Shared Interest Group'lar altında bir takım çalışmalar yaptık. Çok faydasını gördük. Gururla söyleyebilirim ki 17.000 mezunun üzerindeki üye sayımızla şu anda dünya üniversitelerinde %33 ortalama oran. Bu oranın üzerinde bir üye oranıyla devam ediyoruz. Bugün Mark'ın konuşması da biraz bundan üzerine olacak. Arkadaş yaratma, dost yaratma ve fon yaratma üzerine olacak. Thank you for accepting our invitation for Mark Dollhopf, and thank you for your speech about fundraising and friend-raising. And this is our 30th anniversary, and this is the first presentation or first meeting for our anniversary. And Mark will explain us how to create friends, how to create funds like YALE, more than $3 billion in 2 years. Thank you, Mark.
He shouldn't thank me before the speech. That's the first mistake. It may not be worth thanking after I'm done with all of this. How wonderful to be back here at YALE. I visited a number of times in 2009 and 2010 to establish our Global Alumni Leadership Exchange here, and have many friends and enjoyed our time here in Turkey enormously. So, and I see you arranged for great weather. It is below 0 degrees in New York, and we still have snow on the ground in the United States. So this is spring break for me, so it's good to be here. So they told me to keep my comments tonight to about 3 hours. But I see you've been drinking, so I don't think you're going to make it to 3 hours. But my job is to talk and your job is to listen. But if you finish your job first, just tell me, okay? And I'll be sure to finish my job right away. So tonight I'm going to talk about friend raising and fundraising, because in the United States, And undoubtedly here too, they're intertwined, and you cannot have one without the other. And as many of you probably know, the wealthiest universities in the United States are entirely dependent upon the generosity of our alumni. To give you an example, at Yale, our annual budget is roughly $3 billion. That is our budget every year. About 40% of that, 1.4 billion, comes from donations every year. Now, that is money from our endowment of 22 billion. You can do the conversion. That is money from our endowment of 22 billion, of which we spend about 5 or 6% every year. And it is also from annual contributions of cash. And that ranges anywhere from $400 million to $600 million a year. $400 to $600 million a year. In the United States, the amount of money we raise every year is called the run rate. Our run. Hopefully we're not walking. We're running. That's the run rate. We have approximately, I'm just giving you a sense of scale right now because I think it's important to understand the numbers. We have about 250 on our fundraising staff. Our development office is 250 people. And this is similar in the Ivy League. Harvard probably has more because they're a bigger school. Princeton has fewer because they're a smaller school, but the ratios are roughly the same. We have about 50 people in alumni relations. So there are more than 300 people in alumni relations and fundraising at Yale. Unless you think, oh my God, we don't have any people or we have just a few, let me give you the good news. In 1980, Yale didn't have a development office. Right? That's only 30 years ago. That's not long, right? We have grown from 0 to 250 in 30 years. And the growth rates in the United States among institutions like Yale has been similar, right? So we are still on the uphill climb, right? And I can tell you what those 250 people can do, but I'll save that for a little on in the conversation. Why is this vital? Why is this important? The price to go to Yale is $60,000 for 1 year. That's about $250,000, $250,000 to go 4 years, right? That's a lot of money. However, the cost of the education is about $130,000 a year, more than twice as much. So our students, when they attend Yale, recognize the fact that even if they pay the full amount, they are not paying for the full cost. And that creates a sense of obligation, of gratefulness, of what we call stewardship. I like to tell my alumni audiences that Yale changed my life. I was from a blue-collar family. You know what blue-collar means? I was from a lower social economic class. I went to Yale, it changed my life. And I recognize that I wouldn't have had that opportunity if alumni from previous generations hadn't given the money to make it possible for somebody like me to go to the school. That creates lifelong gratefulness, right? I think that it's my job to give back all the time. That's why I do the job that I do. I am grateful, and I now am not only a volunteer, but I work at the university to continue that chain of reciprocity. Having received many gifts, I want to make sure that others can receive those gifts. Now, just for one other point of explication here, because it's important to know why it is that I am here with you tonight. So, all of our students receive financial aid because they don't pay the entire price or cost. But if your family makes $75,000 or less, Yale is free of charge. You don't pay a penny for tuition, room, or board. If your family earns $200,000, that covers a lot of people. Yeah? If your family makes $200,000 or the equivalent or less, you only pay 10% of your income. In that case, $20,000. And this financial aid is given regardless of where you are from. In the United States, prior to 6 years ago, every college and university would charge foreign students, those coming from abroad, the full cost. If you had to get financial aid, you typically got it from someplace in your own country, and there weren't many resources, frankly, to spend kids to expensive schools in the United States. 6 years ago, that changed. Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, Williams, and Amherst now give financial assistance to students, both domestic and foreign. That means you get the same financial aid if you grow up in Istanbul that you do if you grow up in New York City. Yale makes no distinction, right? Now, why am I here?
You want money?
I want, no. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to turn it away. But what we really want are the best and brightest students. That's what we want. And we recruit here. I just met with our team of alumni in Istanbul this past weekend, and we interview all students when they apply to Yale. Our alumni interviews them, right? So we have, I don't know, maybe 150 students from Turkey that apply to Yale every year, probably more. We visit every one of them. It's impressive, right? Something for our alumni to do, because we want them to come to Yale. We probably have about 5 to 10 students every year that come to Yale. We have about 50 students right now, undergraduate from Turkey. 10% of our undergraduate students come from abroad. About 30% of our graduate and professional school students come from abroad. So it's a very high percentage, and it's growing. Because, after all, what does it mean to be a global university? I'm not sure I can give you the exact answer. Probably Cambridge and Oxford are ahead of the curve there because they recruit students from the Commonwealth countries. But we're catching up. Actually, we're about parity right now. I'd say it's about 22 to 25% overall the number of students from abroad. But that brings us back to why I'm here, and that is to recruit the best students from Turkey. Now, this is a very, very good thing for you. Why is that? Why is this good for you? Why am I here? We call it cherry picking in the United States. I don't know, what do you call it here? Picking the best, right? We call it cherry picking. Why is being here, recruiting the best students, good for Wazachi, Coach, Savachi, whatever, fill in the blanks, Duquesne, whatever university you represent? Why is that good for you?
So we will keep
It builds a reputation for them.
It builds a reputation for us. I get that.
For this institution also.
Why does it build a reputation here?
A student going to Yale is an accomplishment. Especially if
Oh, for Turkey, but not for Wazachi. How does Wazachi win if the student goes to Yale and not Wazachi?
I think at the end it's a win-win situation because that's given. When he gets his education in the United States, whether he comes back to Turkey or whether he stays in the United States, he's doing a good thing for Turkey.
That's true. That's true. That's true. We hope they come back to Turkey. Yeah, no. They usually go on. We don't want to keep the best ones. Maybe I don't know. Here's how it helps. This is okay. Now we have to get on. I see there's a little hesitation. Here's why this is good for you. Go ahead.
What's the percentage of your students paying the full tuition?
40%.
What percentage?
60% don't pay.
So that means they are under the $75,000 bracket?
Yeah. Under the $200,000 bracket. Yeah, it's most of them. This is more nuanced than I need to be, but if Yale wanted to, they wouldn't have to charge tuition. They wouldn't have to. They have the money that they need. The reason they do charge tuition is because some people can afford to pay. And if there are any economists here, it establishes value in the marketplace. If we gave it away free, then we'd have the problem that they have in Germany. Because the German universities can't convince their alumni to give to the schools. Why? Because it's free. Why are you going to give money back to an institution if it's free? right? Now, there are reasons, but it's lost on most of their alumni, right? And we've been working with the German universities too. At any rate, here's why this is good for WASG. Because the competition is healthy, right? Because you need to be recruiting the best and the brightest students. You have to go out and find them, right? If I ran a race against somebody that was always really slow, I would never be at my full potential, right? I need Harvard University. Sorry I said that. But we need Harvard, right? Yale needs Harvard. WASG needs Yale. WASG needs Harvard. We understand that this competition is healthy among all worldwide universities. And we realize that not everybody is going to be great, but it is the aspiration to be great which is important, because that's where universities invest the appropriate resources to help win this race. And look, the fact of the matter is the race isn't just for students, it's for faculty, right? The average faculty salary at Yale is $200,000 a year. Anybody interested? you see, the point is that universities have to recognize that they need to be very smart at attracting the resources necessary to compete on a global basis. If you're not competing, you're going to be lazy about this. Now, that is not to say that our government shouldn't be doing their fair share. The fact of the matter is, quite frankly, even though I come from a capitalist economy like the United States, I happen to believe, my personal opinion, is the government should be doing much, much more. That being said, 30% of Yale's budget comes from the government. 30% of our budget comes, 40% comes from donations, 30% comes from the government, only 15% comes from tuition and fees. And that surprises many, many people. So the fact is we get a lot of government, federal government support, not state support. So University of Michigan, University of Connecticut, those attract state funds. Our funds come from the federal level. But the point is that it is a competition, and we are competing among the best. You need to be among the best. Turkey is a rising economy, right? And it is only going to get better if indeed its universities are the technological engines driving innovation, right? That's what a reporter tonight, I don't know if she's still here, the reporter asked me tonight, what's my advice to Turkey, because kids are getting jobs, kids are not getting jobs, kids are getting degrees, and they're not getting jobs. So what's the advice? Well, the advice is not to drop out because you need to give up because you're not going to get a job if you have a BA or a PhD. The job is to continue to feed that engine, because that education is the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? And I think it's a mistake to think of education in only utilitarian terms, because I get this abroad a lot, and there's considerable criticism in the United States of colleges and universities that spend their time on the liberal arts and not job training. At Yale, at the undergraduate, Yale College, we do not train you for a job. We specifically do not train you for a job. We train you to think. We train you to be critical thinkers. We train you to be innovators. We train you to be creative change agents. That's the job will come later. Now, not everybody has that luxury. I get that. But an educated citizenry is needed for effective government and for society change. And after all, isn't that what you're about at these universities? You, by definition, you're a nonprofit organization. By definition, your job is to change society. Not to be content with what's given to you by the government or by anybody else. Your job is change. Not so easy, but that's your job. That's the way we see our job. Our job as nonprofits in the United States is to change the culture. And oftentimes I hear out of universities say, well, in the United States, alumni give money because that's in their culture, and it's not in the culture here. I won't accept that. It is in the culture in the United States. Don't get me wrong. But everybody has a need to give. Everybody. I don't care where you live. You have a need to give to help your fellow man. Now, how it is that you encourage that, inspire that, and engage people with that understanding is the extent to which you are going to be successful at inspiring them to give money. Yeah? So, that's some of the foundation for my remarks tonight. You thought I was almost done. I'm just getting started. Okay? So, I failed. I had to give you some background, but now I like to do my speeches backwards. Which is, I'm going to ask you the questions first. I'm not going to waste your time for 30, 40 minutes here listening to me if your question isn't going to be answered. So, I came tonight to talk about fundraising and fundraising. What do you want to know? Well, looks like we're done. Go ahead.
What's the biggest problem you have?
What's the biggest problem I have?
In terms of collecting donations, is it the deadline or?
Does this work? Biggest problem. I'll tell you my biggest problem right now. And it was like the minister who stood up in front of his congregation, or the imam in front of his, or the fill in the blank. He said, I have good news and bad news about our fundraising campaign. The good news is we have all the money we need to fix the roof. The bad news is it's still in your pockets. That's my biggest problem. The money is still in their pockets. That was an easy one. I got that. I'll tell you how I overcome the problem, but that's my biggest problem, right? It's still in their pockets. And another big problem. In 1970, there were 100,000 nonprofit organizations in the United States. 100,000. Today, there are 2.4 million. In 40 years, it's gone from 100,000 to 2.4 million. And we're competing with every one of them. Yale competes with the other 2.599999999 million nonprofit organizations. Yeah? That's a problem. It's increasingly competitive. That's why we have 250 staff people on our development team. Right? Other questions. Let's get the questions out here. I'm going to collect the questions and I'll answer. What was your question?
To raise a friend, what is the main difficulty or what are the processes? I mean, what do you organize as social activities or networking activities? What kind of activities do you organize to raise a friend?
Yeah, we give them a lot of alcohol. Yes. Get them drunk, they'll give you anything. Okay, how do we raise a friend? Okay, what are some other questions? Yeah.
How do you retain, how do you keep them to donate for a long time?
How do you keep them? That's a great question. Because many people, once they get the gift, they go on to the next gift. Not understanding that that first gift is the person much more likely to give the next time than the new person. How do you keep them gifts, okay? Fundraising, let me put this up here to remind myself how to answer the questions here. The fundraising, how do you do it, okay? How do you sustain the giving over the long term? Yeah, okay. Other questions?
What was your first step?
What's my first step? In what? In raising money, okay. Because it's on fundraising and fundraising. So, the first step. Okay? Other questions?
How much recognition is important for fundraising?
How much is what? Recognition. Okay? In other words, you mean thanking or putting the name on a building? Either one. How important is recognition? Okay?
How much you spend for the operation?
How much you spend on all of this?
Yes.
Okay, how much you spend? That's a pretty easy answer, actually. And I'll get to that. Yep.
Do you differentiate between the individuals and the companies in your processes?
Absolutely. That's an easy answer. Absolutely differentiate. 87% of our contributions come from individuals. 7% come from corporations, 6% come from foundations. That's upside down from a lot of other countries, right? But that has more to do with the culture of individual giving than it does a lack of corporate giving in the United States. And there are greater tax benefits to be had if you own your business to give the money as an individual than as a company. But that being said, corporations and foundations is a separate office, and we invest a lot. Stanford's percentages are actually about 40% from corporations because they're right in Silicon Valley, right? So it varies by universities, but Yale is typical, about 85% comes from individuals. Yes, back here, yeah.
Are you concentrating always on the same donation people, or do you try to find new people for donation?
Okay, new or old people? Yeah. Are you a school or a nonprofit? You represent an NGO or an institution?
Myself?
Yes.
I'm a marketing academician
A marketing academician.
at the university.
Oh, at the university, okay. That's a great question. At Yale, we have 150,000 alumni, and we only get 1,000 new ones every year, right? So yes, we're going back to the same people many, many times over the course of a year. But if I'm an NGO, I might have an unlimited universe of potential donors. So the philosophy, the marketing approach is going to be different. And I'll address that in a little bit. So 2 more questions and then I'll get started. Yeah?
What's the motivation for the individuals to make this donation?
What is the motivation? Now we're getting down to business. Okay? Is this sticky?
There's another one.
Oh, there's another one. Oops. The speech just got twice as long. Motivation. Okay?
There's one more.
One more. Yeah.
How do you manage your portfolio and what's the average rate of return for the last 4 years?
How do I manage the portfolio? Now, I'm assuming you're talking about money and not donors. Right? Yeah. So I don't manage the money. Thank God.
How do you?
But we have an investment office. They are often compensated as are people in the private sector. So they're oftentimes paid a lot more money, millions of dollars. Not my salary, unfortunately. Their portfolio is incredibly diversified. So only 7% of our money is in the stock market. The rest is in fixed assets and resources. And Yale invests in everything from oil wells to golf courses to hotels. It's incredibly diversified. That is a whole subject matter unto itself. Our endowment now stands at $22 billion. It returned last year about 14%, I believe. We have a 14%. The man who's paid millions of dollars, not me. Our average return in the years 2000 to 2008 was 16%. That was the average return for 8 years. The most it returned in 1 year was 21% in 1 year. Now, 2008, it went down by a third, right? It went from 22 billion down to 16 billion, and it went back up. But that is managed by an entire staff of probably 50 professionals. That's all they do is manage our investment, right? They're asset managers. It's a pretty, you can go online to Yale Investment Office, just Google it. They'll have all the graphs and the charts, and they'll show you the allocations. It's pretty detailed, and that's all online. I think Harvard's is too, and Princeton, so they're all fairly. Yale actually set the standard in being more aggressive in its investment of, a generation ago, universities were very conservative. It was stocks and bonds, that's it. Then, all hell broke loose. There are the hedge funds, and, we created risky portfolios in the eyes of some, but the growth rate is undeniable. So it was huge last year. We're back up. We were down to 16 billion in 2008, and 7 years later, we're back up to 22 billion. So in this 7-year period of time, we've gone from 16 back up to 22 billion. The highest asset return in the United States. I think 2 more questions, and then we're headed up here. Yes, the gentleman here.
How do you give your feedback to the donors? I mean, accountability.
Feedback, accountability. That's a good point. We use success metrics, and I'll describe what those are. And one more question here, and then I'm going to get started. Yeah?
What is the percentage of the money you spend, including salaries?
6%.
6%.
6%. Cost to raise a dog. It's cost to raise a dog in the United States. We call it. That's the percentage of money I spend to raise money. The average of the Ivy League institution is about
all the salaries you pay to the 250 people and
the 300 people, and the investment fund, and all the fees. Yeah, but just the cost to raise money.
6% of the yearly income of the total?
Yearly.
Of the yearly.
As opposed to what? What do you mean the total? That's the yearly. Yeah, yeah. So it's about 12% in the Ivy League, about 6 to 18% at most established colleges. It can be as high as 22% at beginning colleges and universities. 6% is too low. I think we should be spending more to raise money. One more. Yep, yep.
Do you use crowdfunding for your projects?
No. And the reason we don't, it's good in NGOs. For NGOs, it's good. For universities, the gifts are too small. They're way too small. The average gift is way too small. And it doesn't create the kind of emotional attachment and engagement necessary for ongoing gifts. The crowdfunding tends to be one-off gifts. It's great for raising awareness, yes, but we don't have to spend as much time raising awareness because everybody already went to the school, right? They're aware of it. That's not our issue. Crowdfunding is most importantly for the first step in building the relationship. So we're looking at it, Kickstarter and those things, we're looking very closely at it, but so far, we would be leaving money on the table, so to speak, if we launched into those programs. All right, so let's look at some of these things and see if I can put all of these themes together. First of all, my experience with universities in the U.S. that are starting or abroad that are starting is that as soon as they find their alumni, the first thing they do is they go for the jugular. Right? What do I mean by that? I kill them. I go for the jugular means I ask them for money right away. Okay? Assuming that, oh, you went to my school. It might have been 50 years ago, but I know you're ready to make a donation. And that would not be right, right? So we tend to be far too aggressive once having identified our potential donors. And I know that's a challenge for everybody. And I think most of the universities in this room, I don't know everybody who's represented here, but in Turkey you've done a pretty good job at locating your alumni. And especially with a lot of the private new universities like Bağışçı Tespit, you don't have any alumni over the age of 40 anyway, so it's all fairly new, and you keep fairly good track of your alumni. I work with universities like Australia National or Copenhagen or Zurich. You know, those state-supported institutions, once a student leaves, they say goodbye. They never track them anymore. I mean, it's like getting your driver's license, right? The universities never saw a reason until now, right? Now they're sorry. But many of those universities are looking for ways to find their alumni. In China, they never bothered to track their alumni, right? In China, they have programs where they pay the students a bounty to go back to the village where they're from and find alumni that went to their school, and they pay them a fee. It's an idea. I'm going to borrow that myself, right? So, many universities abroad are in the business of just trying to find their alumni. And then once they find their alumni, they think they're going to be ready to give. And that's just not the case. People aren't necessarily ready to give right away. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't ask them. You should. But what you should be thinking of is, how do I first build the relationship? This is most important. Now, we happen to call this alumni relations or alumni relations. Think of it this way. Instead of telling our alumni what we need, let's ask them what they want. Let's ask them what they need. And so, a good institution, fundraising-wise, might concentrate on the needs of the college or university. A great institution is going to focus on the needs of their donors, on the needs of their alumni. Right? I like to say that a good fundraiser knows how to ask for money. A good fundraiser knows how to ask for money. Can you give me $10,000? Wow. You don't have about 5,000. 3,000? 1,000?
$10.
There you go. I got it. I kept asking and I got $10 from someone who never gave me out $10 before. Okay? That would make me a good fundraiser. A great fundraiser knows how to inspire people to give. That's a different equation. Right? That's a different equation. Asking for money and inspiring to give are two sides of a coin. Right? And oftentimes our institutions, because we need the money right away, we're tempted to ask aggressively. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's wrong. All I'm saying is this has to be balanced with the inspiration and the aspiration, right? So you ask, what would be the first step? I'll tell you the first step. I want to know who you are. I want to know what your passion is. I want to know what you get excited about. I want to know what your relationship is to the school. Maybe you have favorite friends, classmates. Maybe you have a favorite professor. My first step is to find out all about you, as much as I can. Now, I have 150,000 alumni, and we can't create dossiers, or as we call them, portfolios. We actually call them portfolios, but not in the financial sense. We do this individually. We have a team of 30 people who do nothing but research, our alumni. Nothing but research. They go through newspaper articles, they compile demographic information. In the United States, you can purchase a lot of information about someone. Right? We have companies that provide aggregate information about your relative wealth. And where do they get this information? Well, they get it from the motor vehicle department. We know how many cars you own and what kind of cars they are. You know, if you own a Volkswagen Beetle, I'm not sure I'm going to be interested in developing a relationship, but if you own 3 Mercedes-Benz, maybe I might. We know the real estate that you buy and sell. We know, in the United States, if you buy a TV, you fill out a little warranty card. You do that here? If you buy a TV, do they ask you to fill it out? Well, in some cases, in the United States at least, they ask you, what's your income range? Maybe you've seen this, right? And people go, oh, $100,000. No. Well, that information is bought and sold in the United States, and it's all public information. Nothing is illegal here, right? But that kind of information, I know because I have a business that did this one. We sell this information to colleges and universities, and nonprofit organizations. Speaking of the United States, it's called electronic screening, it's called wealth analysis, it goes by everything. So I'm saying that's not the be-all, end-all of research, but it is an interesting data point. It's not exact, by the way. We don't have some spy looking at your paycheck. That doesn't happen. But we can come in relatively close, right? But that's only part of it. The other information is compiled through personal interviews. Okay? And I'm going to come back to this theme time and time again tonight. In the for-profit sector, we motivate people how? Well, I guess you're all in the nonprofit sector, so you wouldn't know how to motivate in the for-profit sector. How do you motivate somebody in the business world? Compensation. Money! You give them more of it if they do well, right? Hopefully. You do that here in Turkey, yeah? Right? So if your business is successful, you make more money. In the government world, how do you motivate people? Yeah, or the law, or the vote. You know, if you're an official, that's the only way you're... In the nonprofit world, what's the motivation? Nobody's forcing you. I can't reward you, but it's reputation before it's relationships. It's based on the personal relationships, the emotional attachment that you create with your potential donors and your alumni. The emotional attachments. Some of you said you're traveling to Yale, you're going to meet with our president, Peter Salovey. He wrote a book on emotional intelligence. It's called EQ, right? We have an IQ, how smart we are. We also have EQs, because we can be emotionally smart, right? And those of you in the room that are going to be the best of the fundraisers are going to be very emotionally smart people. Because it's not advertising campaigns. It's not slogans. It's not the brilliant direct mail piece, although that's part of it, the letters that you write. you know, it's the campaigns, it's the banners that say 30 years, it's the fancy clubs, and I get all that. I get all that. But at the end of the day, if you want to be great, you have to create personal relationships. You want to know what those 250 people do at Yale? They are each responsible for, on average, 100 people. That's it. That's their job. 100 people. Imagine if you were a fundraiser here in Turkey, and you were given 100 individuals and said, here's your job, folks, those 100 people. Now, you could write one letter to all of them asking for money, and you'd be done with your job in about a day. Both literally and figuratively. You'd be out the door. Right? What are you going to do with those 100 people? What are you going to do with them? How do you create a relationship? I mean, it's not rocket science here. I mean, that's why they don't pay me a lot of money. This is not hard to figure out. Okay? That was a joke. It's getting really late, apparently. I can see the wine is beginning to kick in here. How do you make a relationship with somebody?
Visit them personally.
Visit them personally, time and time again. You want to know how to sustain relationships? You had that question for somebody over here? You had that. How to sustain? You say thank you. And you visit them again, and say thank you again. And then you visit them again, and you thank them again. Right? Now, I'm saying figuratively visit them. You don't have the money to, you're not going to fly to New York for your Wazachi alum there every time you want to say thank you. Unless they gave you $10 million. Then I would get on a plane. Our Vice President on Development just flew to Hong Kong and came back one day. $5 million gift. You want to know risk reward? Yeah. I'd buy an airplane ticket to Hong Kong if I thought I was going to get a $5 million gift. Right? You have to weigh the potential benefit versus the cost. But out of the 150,000 of alumni at Yale, we have 7,000, it's not a big number, only 7,000 that we call rated prospects, or those people that we are intentionally creating personal relationships. In that case, for development purposes. We create relationships for fundraising purposes too. And I will come back to that shortly. But 7,000 people. So those 7,000 people are divided among the 250 staff people. And it's layered. It's not every staff person has 100 people. If the potential for giving among that alum is under $100,000, a gift in 1 year, then I as a staff person might have 400 of those people. And then it's layered. The more money the donor is likely to give, the fewer staff are assigned because the relationship has to be more intense. So we have an office called, we have first, we business and economy. That's right. That's a great analogy. We have major gifts, we have special gifts, we have principal gifts. Principal gifts are between $5 million and $10 million. $5 million and $50 million. Actually, those are principal gifts. They probably have 50 prospects each. Then we have a new staff called transformational giving. And that is about 6 people. And that is for the 20 donors who are each capable of giving $100 million or more. Now, that's a full-time job. Somebody that is capable of a $100 million gift is going to be a gift that is probably in negotiation over at least a 3 to 5 year period of time. Nobody just wakes up one morning and writes a $100 million check. I wish it were that easy. All right, if I could find those people, they would pay me a lot more money, right? But I can't. You have to, and those $100 million gifts are developed over a lifetime, right? So we had a gentleman just recently who gave us $100 million for our music school, just the music school, which means that there's no more tuition in our music school. If your kids play the violin, tell them to practice. That's all I have to say. You want to get to Carnegie Hall, practice. You want to get to Yale, practice even more. Because it's free of charge. Okay? He is from the class of 59. That probably makes him about 76, 78 years old. His first gift was in 1959. It was $10. Those gifts have been developing over a lifetime. You want to know how to create large gifts? Understand that they are created over a lifetime and they begin small and they grow incrementally. Now, that's not to say that there aren't big gifts that come in right away, but they're rare, right? All of you who have young alumni, the advice from the United States, start early, start often, right? Get those gifts in the door, whatever size they are, and make sure they are repeat gifts. More than once a year. It doesn't have to be once a year. Your annual fund shouldn't stop because they made one gift, right? Keep writing. Because they are incremental over a lifetime. At any rate, so our principal gift staff, our transformational gift staff, probably have about 3 to 5 alumni assigned to each of our gift officers. And here is the other very interesting point. Are there any former presidents of universities here? Anybody else? I know you are. Anybody else? They all left. That's because they know how to do it. So Yale just finished a $3.6 billion capital campaign. $3.6 billion. We raised that over 5 years. What's that per year? 600 to 800 million a year. Right? Of the people who gave more than $1 million, it's in the hundreds. Well, here's another interesting stat that you should all be aware of. It's in the United States and it's growing abroad too. It's what we call the skew. So if you're from business school, you would know this principle: 80% of your money comes from 20% of your customers. Do you know that?
Yes.
Right. What's that? Pareto's principle. Yes. So Pareto's principle. In the United States, we call it Pareto, right? So it used to be 80% of your money came from 20% of your donors. In last capital campaign at Yale, just ended last year, 98% of our money came from 2% of our donors. And that is typical in the U.S. regardless of the size of the institution. So if you think that you're going to create your organization based on thousands of people giving $1,000 each for the same amount of money, you would be wrong. You need to understand this skew and understand that it applies to all nonprofit organizations, right? So this makes it even more important why we need to be focused on that very top of the giving pyramid. Of the $3.8 billion given to Yale, 45%, $1.6 billion was given by 45 individuals. 1.6 billion by 40. Now you know why we assign a staff person to each of those 45 individuals. If you want advice on how to direct your fundraising staff, I just gave it to you in a nutshell. Find the most important donors and stick to them like dough. Right? Of the hundreds of people that gave more than $1 million to Yale, our president had a personal relationship with 88% of them. Our president had a personal, that doesn't mean writing a letter once a year. That means at least a visit every year, if not multiple visits every year. Had a personal relationship with 88%. That's how important the personal relationships are. I can't emphasize this enough. In the United States, people are abroad. People are stunned. If President Salovey, my boss, was standing there right now, and you asked him how much time did he spend in fundraising? More than half. In the United States, you get your job as the president of an academic institution because of your academic prowess. You create a legacy for yourself by your ability to inspire people to give. Notice I didn't say fundraise. Notice I didn't say fundraise. It's not that every president has to know how to shake somebody's hand and ask them for money, but they do have to know how to inspire people to give. That involves understanding the motivations of our donors. So let me address that because that's one of the questions in recognizing and how we understand what the motivations are. I could give a whole day's training on this because donor motivation is very, very nuanced. But let me just say it's part of the emotional quotient, the EQ that all of us have. Some people give for very selfish reasons. What might a selfish reason to give be? What might a selfish reason be?
Create a legacy.
You create a legacy. What kind of legacy? What's that? Name a building. You want your name on a building, right? I'm not going to give that money unless my name's on the building. We've had that happen a lot. In fact, our residential colleges in Yale, by policy, are not named after donors. They're named after famous dead presidents, right? dead white male presidents. Be specific about it. I'll tell you a little bit about the conversation about naming the next colleges, which better not be dead white males, but that's another issue altogether. At any rate, a donor said, "I'll give you $125 million if you put my name on that college." Yale said, "No." What's that for a chutzpah? Yeah? He gave his money to the New York Public Library instead. Schwartzman, wait, you know what's here, right? But the point is that was not that we parse motivations. We're not making moral judgments here. But the point is that we have principles, right? But let me come back to the donor motivation. What are some other selfish motives for giving? Competition between people. I want to give more than he gave, or she gave. Yeah? What other stuff? What's that? Tax deduction. Yeah, you get something. You know, in the public radio world in the United States, you can't give a gift without expecting a tote bag or an umbrella or the 3 tenors on the table. You know, they give away premiums, tchotchkes, right? Maybe some people want power. Oh, they get money, they get on the board. Maybe they get a chair. They get to exercise authority over other people. Those are selfish motives. That's what I get because I gave a gift. Now, not everybody gives from that kind of motivation. As we become more emotionally mature, which not everybody arrives at the same place in life, cognitive psychologists will tell you, right? We become more expansive in how it is that we think about motivation. So at the next level up, right, from this what do I get out of it, you might do it because of what other people think of you, right? It's your role as a sister, as a mother, as a daughter, as a friend, right? I have responsibilities because of the people around me. That would be the next level of motivation. The next motivation above and beyond that is more utilitarian. We want to give so the institution is successful, so that it doesn't fail, right? So that's why I give to Yale, because I want it to be better than Harvard, right? It's that competitive. This institution has to be better than that institution. That's the way many of our campaigns are based. You know, the Pazartesi University Campaign for Excellence, because we want to be more excellent than anybody else, right? That's the underlying assumption. I'm kidding, but you know what I mean, right? It's for the alma mater, right? That's why the football team is out there cheering on their teams, right? The next level of engagement would be those people that do it not because of the institution, but because they recognize their social contract. For any Rousseau fans out there, they understand that as a member of society, we need to support each other, and that there are certain things that we have to do as a civilized society to ensure that everybody is educated, to ensure that everybody has the safety net, to ensure that we help our fellow human beings. Right? You see, that's a much more expansive kind of emotional engagement than wanting your name on something. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying say no to people that want their name on things. We bribe donors all the time. You know, want your name on it? Well, it's going to cost you $20 million, right? We didn't name those colleges after the donor, but we have other opportunities. You know? And the point is that you have to understand the motivations of the donor, right? Now, that's not even the top level. The top level is not the people that sign the Rousseau social contract. The top level, and I think you all know certain people like this, are those that are just grateful. They recognize that in this life they have been given remarkable gifts. They recognize that in this life there have been many, many people that have helped them achieve where it is that they are and what it is that they do. We try to create this culture of gratefulness. You know, there's a strong Judeo-Christian, but also Islamic bent to this, which is undeniable. We receive gifts. Wherever you receive the gift, wherever you believe you receive gifts from, and even if you're not religious, secular, you know, the fact is that by accident, by genetic coincidence, you were blessed. Right? You were born into a great family. You were, whatever it is, however it is you realize how those gifts were given to you, you have a need to give back. Without recompense, without reward, without recognition. You know, Confucius was once asked by a famous, very wealthy man, I have built monasteries. I have provided schools. What is my reward? Confucius said, there is no reward. That's a puzzle. I'd be glad to keep you afterwards over a bottle of scotch to explain. But the point is, people shouldn't do it because there is reward or merit. Now that is a very elevated emotional EQ. And cognitive psychologists will tell us we don't arrive at that level. In fact, if you were like me, I'd have got different motivations to different organizations, right? But how it is you promote the gift says a lot about you as an institution and says a lot about what you expect from people. You set the tone. You set the culture. If you're out there peddling all the time, give us money, here's what you get. It's going to say a lot about what that person thinks of you and what they should be doing in response to your solicitations. Right? And this is going to be the difference between requesting and asking money from somebody and the inspiring, which is a different. The inspiration comes from an understanding of the culture of gifts and what it is that we do with gifts once having been given to us, and what our obligation is to the next generation. Wow, put like that, you're going to set your donors back on their heels, and they're going to ask, what is my motivation? What is my motivation? Now, I wish I could tell you you could equate the size of the gift with the motivation, and you can't. Because I know some enormously grateful people who are just the best people. You just want to surround yourself with them and find out why are they so nice and they're grateful, and they may not have a lot of money. And I have been with billionaires who are nasty son of bitches, right? So there's no equation between the amount of money that you have and your emotional intelligence. There's just not. I have to tell you that. So that means that just because somebody has a lot of money doesn't mean they're just magnanimous, grateful, willing donors, right? But you have to find out what their motivation is. And again, we can instruct by what it is that we do. We can encourage and inspire, but we cannot be pedantic about this. You can't go, well, I'm not going to take your gift unless your emotional intelligence is higher than it is now. You're not going to do that. What I'm saying is this is inside baseball. I don't know if you have a similar term, inside soccer. These are the inside nuances of the game that you as the professionals have to know, right? You as the professionals here in this crowd that are responsible for raising money have to know that what it is that you do is creating a relationship and understanding the motivations of your donors. This is hard work. There's no easy answer here. Fundraising is 2% great ideas, 98% perspiration. 2% inspiration, 98% perspiration is what we say. It's a lot of work to get to know these donors and understand why it is that they make a motivated gift, and then how it is that you even ask, how it is that you frame your ask. If I'm going for the building, I might tell a guy, yeah, you get your name on it, or I might say, and within those walls, you are going to change the lives of the next generation. Or I might say, with that building, you recognize the legacy of those alumni who came before you and provided you with the amazing opportunities that you have today. You see, I just ask for money in 3 different ways. And I would probably do it differently based on the motivation of that donor. Because I need that match. That brings me to what time is it? Here, are you done with your job?
Around 1 hour.
1 hour. It's around 1 hour. Okay, so I'm going to begin to wrap this right now because some of you are finishing your job before I'm finishing mine here, right? So I better wrap this up fast. Emotionally intelligent people and the ability to build friends. What is friend-raising? I'll tell you exactly what friend-raising is. It's not providing access or benefits or special privileges. I get that, but at its core, that is not essentially what brings people together. There's a number of great works and books out there. I would encourage you to read Better Together by the Harvard sociologist Robert Putnam. He teaches at Harvard, but he got his PhD at Yale. Just got to tell you that. And he explains what it is that creates social networks, right? A social network is a family of people that believe in your cause. That's essentially what it is. And so how do you bring people, how do you create social networks? That's what the book is all about. It's not a fundraiser, but it could be, right? Now we can get into alumni relations in the small cell alumni organization, a shared interest group, that's how we do it. But at its heart, here's what shared interest groups do. They gather people together who share the same values. They gather people together who share the same values. Now, you have to have a discussion of what those values are, because you can't assume, right? And you have to communicate those values in whatever it is that you're doing in your success metrics. Somebody asked me, how do you demonstrate when you've been successful? When we have acted upon those values, and I can show you proof of it. So what are some of those values? I'm going to have two very famous spokespeople, members of the Yale Alumni Association, explain their values to you in just a moment. What are your values? Can anybody tell me what? Let's just pretend we all went to Pazartesi for a moment, okay? What are your shared values? Okay, you really have to pretend. What are your shared values? Name a value. If I talk to a faculty, a staff, former president, if I talk, what is important? What really matters in life? What are your values? Yeah? What's that? Integrity. There's a value. What's another value?
Good.
Success. Okay.
Friendship.
Friendship. What's another? Committed. Creativity. Honesty. Solidarity. Okay, so now we're beginning to have a conversation of what really inspires us. Right? And would you not argue with me that that is more inspiring than membership to the club? Now, don't get me wrong here. This is a fabulous club. You do amazing things here, right? And this is a very valuable part of what we call family building. Alumni relations is there are three buckets of alumni relations, right? What cognitive psychologists will tell you, intrinsic values that people pursue, the happiest people pursue. Extrinsic values are the values that people pursue all the time, the hedonic treadmill, but it doesn't necessarily make them happy. The pursuit of money, the pursuit of status, and the pursuit of fame. Those are the three extrinsic values. Intrinsic values, what psychologists tell us to make the most happy, are people that pursue lifelong education and personal development. This is a college, this is a university. People want to learn. This is what makes people happy. Give them the opportunity to learn over a lifetime. That's alumni relations. The second bucket, people are happiest that invest in relationships and communities and close friends. There's a lot of aging studies that show now that people live longer if they have close affiliations and friendship groups, right? This is what we do in alumni relations. We create reunions. What's a reunion other than a gathering of people that are emotionally close to me? That's what a reunion is. If it's not, then you better go back and look at who you're asking to reunion, right? It might be by school, by geography, by shared interest group, whatever the case is. The third bucket, the happiest people are people who give, right? They have the opportunity to give. Give people the chance to give, and I don't just mean writing a check. I mean giving their time and their talent as well as their treasure. Do your alumni have the chance to give back to Pazartesi with their head and their heart, or only with their pocketbook? Think about that for a minute. We, in our Alumni Association, spend a lot of time having people give with their head. That means advice and counsel and working with students on career choices and career counseling and mentoring, and then they give with their heart, right? We have people that volunteer in soup kitchens. We have people that work in third world countries, working in impoverished villages, right? Because they feel good about this. They feel great about it. So we want to make sure we cover all those three buckets. Now, my job, you asked me what my job is. Help people discern their values, have them understand through strategic planning that they share these values with a number of other people, and then communicate these to the larger constituencies. My job is to communicate the values that really matter In fact, I will argue that the job of an alumni association or a nonprofit, an NGO, is to convey values from one generation to the next. Now, if you think that this is entirely noble and out of touch, I'm going to have two people right now tell you what their shared values are for the Yale Alumni Association. I think we need the lights.
I'm pleased to join on a special day, the annual Yale Day of Service. From the beginning, Yale and its people have been dedicated to serving a cause greater than self. Service to society is inscribed in Yale's founding document of 1701 and inscribed on the walls of the campus. Just look up at the south wall of Branford Court and you'll see Nathan Hale's timeless words, "I wish to be useful." Yale alumni service is perhaps most prominent in the public sector, in city halls, state houses, Congress, the cabinet, the Supreme Court, and sometimes the White House. What's most remarkable is the consistent effort by countless Yaleys across the country and continents to make a difference in their communities. Yaleys are citizens, not spectators. Yale alumni hear the call of duty, take a stand, and care for our neighbors. The annual Yale Day of Service celebrates this bond of service that we share as alumni. Thank you for participating and carrying on a great Yale tradition.
What are the values that he just enunciated? What are the values? That was 30 seconds of shared values. What were they? Give to Yale and get your name on the building? What were some of the shared values?
Be useful.
Be useful. I wish to be useful. It was Yaleys are not spectators. They're citizens. They take a stand. They care for their neighbors. They give back in communities around the world. Not just New Haven. They give back in communities around the world. Do you know how powerful this is? Now, it's powerful just because it's the former president of the United States. Right? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to. Why are you so surprised? You know, John F. Kennedy received an honorary degree. John F. Kennedy went to Harvard. This is an important alumni relations story, actually. In 1962, he was given an honorary Doctor of Laws at Yale. And he walked up on the Yale stage and he said, "I have the best of both worlds. I have a Harvard education, but I have a Yale degree." Now, what do you? This is serious stuff here. What do you think he meant by that? What? This was exactly my point in tonight. What did he mean by "I have a Harvard education, but I have a Yale degree"? He is now part of a family and a network and a community that in those days was the old boy network that could get you a job. But if you fast forward this, it's a community that makes a difference. And it was palpable. I mean, it's even the stuff of presidential jokes. Now, if Bush surprised you, I'm also going to show you a video of another famous person who's also an alum.
Hillary and I are delighted to serve as honorary co-chairs of the 2014 Yale Day of Service. Over the years, we've been very proud and grateful for how Yale has continued to connect to its hometown of New Haven, while still being one of the world's truly great global universities. Yale's are deeply committed to service and to building a world of shared responsibility and shared prosperity, because they understand this is the best way forward in our increasingly complex and increasingly interdependent world. We really are all in this together, whether we like it or not. And it's important that we always remember that while our differences do matter a lot, they make life more interesting and progress possible. In the end, our common humanity has to matter more. Hillary and I are proud to be part of the Yale alumni family, proud to support the global Yale Day of Service, and its call to work together to make the world a better place for everyone, on May 10th and on every day, all year round. I hope you all enjoy your service work. Helping others and giving back are among the most noble, enriching, and personally rewarding things we can do. Thanks for doing it.
Now, what were some of the shared values he talked about?
Shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility, but what else?
Remembering and sharing.
Remembering and shared prosperity. He talked about progress that's possible. Because we actually wrote the speeches for these presidents. And one of them used the speech and the other didn't. And I'll let you figure out which one didn't use it, used his own. But my point is this. Here's our job. You want to know how to inspire? That's inspiration. You want to know how to ask? We can spend the next hour talking about the next best online giving initiative, right? At its heart, fundraising and friend-raising is about the relationships that we create and sustain with people. And as fundraisers responsible for our institutions, we have to invest in the relationships, not in the techniques. We have to invest in the people, not the initiatives. We have to invest in the next generation, not the building. Since we began this journey that I just talked about tonight, centering on the relationships and the shared values, in the past 8 years, we have tripled alumni relations. That's measured in participation, not in dollars, although arguably in dollars we've done as well, if not better. That's in participation. The number of people that show up, we had 5,000 events last year, roughly, I can't even count them, 5,000 events, right? We had 3 times as many people engaged as we did 6 years ago. It's about the ability to create a relationship where somebody, our potential donor, feels that the gift of their time is meaningful. And all of your alumni and all of your donors are asking that question every time you invite them to an event. Is this a meaningful use of my time? Or is it just that the university wants something? Now, they're not all asking that directly, but you know what I'm saying. They're thinking this. You have to give your alumni the chance to change a life. And they have to understand that by their commitment of dollars, of time, or talent, that they've been able to change a life because of that. You need to communicate to them. How are they changing lives? The current students, the communities, the new technological innovations that come out of this university, the policies that are created, whatever it is that you do here, and I know it's something of all those things. Tell alumni how they are accomplishing it, not how you are accomplishing it. The definition of a nonprofit organization in the United States is one that enables volunteers to change lives. And yet many institutions make the mistake, look how Wazachi is changing lives. No. The alumni are changing lives, and they're doing it through Wazachi. That's the connection. That's the relationship. Amen. Can't put it out there any more clearly, right? So I admire what it is that you all do. You are life changers, and I don't know whether you know that. Many people think you are money raisers, but you're not. The good among you may be money raisers. The great among you are life changers. Think about how it is that you convey that shared value that you all have to the people that you inspire, and then you'll be great. Thank you all. Yep.
Thank you, Mark, again. It was great to listen to you again and again. Maybe we have a lot of more questions in the chat time, but we have a small gift from Wazachi.
Stocks and bonds.
thank you for your speech again.
Thank you.